We're back with more adventures from the USS Titan, under the command of Captain William T. Riker. The novel series, suitably called Star Trek Titan, follows Riker, Troi, and a couple of other familiar faces, leading the most diverse crew in Starfleet history through the stars. We've previously covered the first book in the series, Taking Wing, on the channel. So if you've not watched the video on screen, click the link in the video description and then come back here. If you have, welcome to the next part of the story. The next book in the series is The Red King, again written by Michael A. Martin and Angie Mengels. This novel is set immediately after the end of the last one, picking up right where the cliffhanger of Taking Wing left off. If you've seen the title of this video, it shouldn't be a total surprise. Again, like last time, this book isn't canon. It was written at a time when the idea of the 24th century, again, after Star Trek Nemesis, was a pipe dream. Since the franchise has been revived adequately in recent years, these books have been put into a separate timeline. Still, it's fun exploring what could have been, and almost was, made of Riker's career aboard the USS Titan. If you want to read this book for yourself, I've left a link in the video description. Let's continue that journey today as we delve into the Red King. Welcome to Trek Central, I'm your host Captain Jack, and let's get into it. If you want to keep up to date on the latest Star Trek news, lore, and more, then hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. Click the links in the description to follow Trek Central on the social media platform of your choice. If you enjoy this video, consider pressing the join button and becoming a YouTube member to get early access and support future videos. Okay, engage. The last book, Taking Wing, followed from the end of Star Trek Nemesis. Newly promoted Captain William T. Riker had just taken command of a lunar-class USS Titan, and following the death of a Reman insurgent Shinzon, the Romulan Empire was in disarray. With a massive power struggle and serious consequences for the enormous space region, the Federation tried its best to negotiate a solution. It's Talora versus Denatra versus some Remans who've teamed up with Spock, and there's also a Klingon fleet in the mix there. Riker challenged the decades he spent alongside Captain Jean-Luc Picard, being ever the expert diplomat, and negotiates an alliance that leaves just about everyone satisfied. You'll have to watch the other video for all the gritty details of what that looks like. Now unfortunately, Riker's day only goes from bad to worse. A fleet of Romulan ships under Denatra has gone missing, in a space anomaly known only as the Great Bloom. As a gesture of goodwill, Riker offers to help Denatra analyze the anomaly before crossing back over into Federation space. Things get nasty here, as the Great Bloom throws the Titan some 200,000 light years away. Tuvok, yes, that USS Voyager Tuvok, is now serving on the Titan, and is understandably distressed. It's not just him feeling a little tired after a similar experience with the USS Voyager. This is a region of space that he's visited previously. He knows the Titan is in great danger, and is now floating all alone in the night. With the last book ending the way it did, you'd think that the Red King would leap straight into the action on the USS Titan. Instead, the opening chapter follows the people that occupy this region of space, which, by the way, is called the Small Magellanic Cloud. This is a region of space mostly occupied by the Neol, a genetic offshoot of a human colony that went missing before First Contact. Thrown into an unfamiliar area of space, left untouched for centuries until the USS Excelsior, captained by Captain Sulu, had an encounter with them and the Cloud. That all happened in the Star Trek Lost Era book, The Sundered, which is perhaps worthy of a similar feature like this one. Maybe if you like these videos, we'll come and do the Lost Era at some point. Basically, this human offshoot was colonizers, ruling over a lot of the region's indigenous species and enslaving them. A Federation ambassador, Aidan Burgess, stayed behind after the Excelsior's encounter, hoping to preach a message of peace and love to the Neol. Sadly, it didn't work too well. She was dead within a decade, and is now revered almost exclusively by the Seekers of Penance, a vaguely religious group who is hoping for a form of Armageddon from a deity they call the Sleeper, which will, in their eyes, atone for the colonial sins of Neol. This is some heavy stuff. This order is headed by a guy called Thrain, one of the Neol. His friend, Nozumi, and another Neol, and some representatives of the Cloud's indigenous species are with him. They find a space anomaly and get captured by Neol security, a ship they're forced to evacuate from soon. It turns out that the anomaly wasn't just a deity, but the arrival of a missing Romulan fleet. They tear through the Neol fleet like tissue paper, an act of war. Gods, Armageddon, and unprovoked attacks on strange alien species. We're only a chapter in, and it's becoming quite a messy situation. Sounds like Star Trek. It's only a chapter later that we now catch up with the USS Titan. Riker can quickly turn the ship around and head back through the anomaly, presumably ending up where they arrived. The fearing that the ship may be destroyed, and that the Romulan Valdor, captained by Denatra, is still out there, it keeps him in the region. With the Excelsior's mission report being heavily redacted, Riker relies on Admiral Akar and Tuvok, both who were on the original mission, to fill in the blanks. The novel then goes back to a more domestic bit, which helps flesh out the characters on board. This time, it's a funeral for those recently deceased, and a bunch of little catch-ups with the injured from the last book in the sickbay with Dr. Ree. Oh, and also a little chat between the senior officers about the ship's yet to be decided upon dedication plaque. It's not much, but the fact the novel has a whole chapter dedicated to this made it feel like a proper Star Trek episode. Also, recovering as a Romulan Valdor, which was thrown around and badly damaged by the journey to the Cloud. Unlike the Titan, Valdor has no Akar or Tuvok, and as a result has no idea where they are. There's also a Klingon fleet lurking around, with the IKS Durg even worse off, forming a sort of uneasy alliance with Denatra. Klingons and Romulans working together. Who'd have thought that would ever be a thing? Especially when it's a Klingon who needs to ask for assistance. They also find Niall's escape pods, bringing the survivors aboard, including Thrain, who Denatra selects for interrogation. She employs him as sort of guide through Niall's space, even if it's most unwillingly. It's from him that she learns of the missing Romulan fleet's attacks, which both confuse and concern her. She knows it's out of character and figures out there must have been some control. Sooner rather than later, the Titan and Valdor pool their resources. An alliance with Denatra manages far more straightforward than the tense one with the Klingons. They stumble upon a missing region of space, as in totally missing, leaving a void of nothing in its wake. While Thrain hails it as the Sleeper, it's actually an emerging proto-universe, forcing its way into this reality. Complicating matters is that this universe may be sentient and appears to have control over the Romulan fleet, due to some technobabble involving a ship's singularity drives. This sentience, of course, adds prime directive concerns to the mission, meaning that destroying the universe is now off the table. Too weak to journey much further, the Klingons are positioned to stand guard by the anomaly that will take them all home, in theory. Journeying through Niall's space all but blind, with only Tuvok, Akar, and Thrain for guides, the Titan and Valdor are deciding on their plan of attack. Denatra is desperate to rescue her fleet, disconnecting it from the clutches of the sentient proto-universe, and hopefully, in the process, nudge this Sleeper elsewhere, or at least tell it to behave nicely. On the way, Riker and Thrain acquaint themselves with one another quite nicely. There's an interesting discussion over a chess game, where Thrain sees Riker and the mostly human Starfleet as slave masters to the aliens, much like the Niall and everyone else in the Cloud. However, Thrain grows to trust Riker more as the game passes. It is a short discussion that solidifies how Thrain and the Seekers of Penance more broadly see their place in the universe and their relationship to the universe around them. Following some advice that Picard gave him before taking command of the Titan, Riker forces himself onto the away team for a risky mission. He and a small team beam onto a Romulan warbird, meeting up with a small team led by Denatra. The ship's crew are comatose, with the ship operating on a sort of autopilot under the control of a proto-universe. What follows is some hacking, software overriding, and basically booting it out of a warbird and the wider fleet. But it was easy, almost too easy, and the book's only like halfway over. Yes, the fleet of Romulan ships is free, but this course of action has angered the universe, accelerating the death of the Cloud. Now, the Neo homeworld of Oghen is set to be destroyed within a week, with its population of 2 billion now resting in the crosshairs. Trust for time to find itself amid a humanitarian crisis that it inadvertently created while trapped on the other side of the universe. On the bright side, it means the back half of this book is nothing short of wall-to-wall action. Before long, the Titan arrives at the Niall homeworld and witnesses the carnage. The ships trying to flee the planet's surface are failing and exploding, and the planet is literally falling apart. The Titan could hardly make it worse, offering all the assistance they can. Riker, however, is carrying much of the guilt on his shoulders, feeling responsible for the deaths of millions. Even with the best, most concentrated efforts of the Titan and the Valdor, they could save a matter of thousands. Better than nothing, but a precious little in the wider picture. One of the few saving graces of the whole operation is the discovery of the Vanguard, an old Earth asteroid colony that originally brought the Niall through the Cloud. Standing the test of time, it became a religious monument, and eventually a refuge for some 10,000 people. Thrain raises an interesting question of choosing who to save, from social status to species, given the history of the Niall mistreating the area's indigenous species, and basically makes the point the Titan should not be playing favourites. A kid, saved aboard the Vanguard, even asks why the Titan's not saving the planet's animals, who like everyone else are sentient, but sentenced to death on the planet below. What follows is one of the most gut-wrenching rescue scenes, with the Titan shuttle saving as many people as they can. The shuttles are crowded, with people desperately clinging onto the side of a shuttle in vain. Flying around the surface also isn't easy, with tall buildings and even mountains falling apart. There's even a particularly impactful scene with one of the officers, Telerian, a Vulcan, knowing she can't be saved after going out of her way to save a child. That's one of the novel's strengths, building up the ship's minor officers into characters. It's only over the course of a chapter it really makes you feel the impact of each and every death, in a scene already full of so much of it. After the carnage, it's basically time to run. The only thing left to do is try and force the Proto universe back into the space between universes, before engulfing the entirety of this one. As far as that plan goes, it's not an ideal one, but controlled and carefully placed explosions of the 20-odd ships in the previous missing Romulan fleet would put the sleeper back into its slumber, at least for a while. A humiliation such as this is unacceptable to Nacha, but she does become amenable after Riker agrees not to tell the Klingons, as to not make the Empire look weak. However, everything isn't quite well back on the Romulan side. Denarch has taken something of a liking to Riker and has been willing to help them, enjoying a temporary but fruitful alliance. However, Commander Saran, who's Denarch's equal on the ship, doesn't quite share these sympathies, going to show that maybe Romulans never changed properly. Saran ends up with a knife in his windpipe, bleeding out in Denarch's office. Due to structural damage, the handful of Klingon ships also needed to be towed back to Romulus through the anomaly. However, Denarch releases the tractor beam and allows the Klingons to die. It's not exactly a sudden turn, but part of me almost hoped that maybe, just maybe, we'd see a proper turning point in the relationship between Starfleet and the Romulans. Denarch also played Riker's hand, forcing him to lie to the Klingons on the other side about what transpired in the cloud. Furious, Riker cancels any sort of honor debt he had left with Denarch, which officially marks the end of that alliance. So basically, despite the hopes of the last book, the relationship between Starfleet and the Romulan Empire is back to where it's always been. On the bright side, everyone on the Vanguard colony, the Titan, and for better or worse, Valdor, got out of the cloud just fine. The sleeper is also back to sleeping, presumably. Putting aside the alliances torn asunder, everything turned out about as well as it could. They tried and saved who they could, and successfully made it back home much faster than the USS Voyager did. Not that it's a competition. So all's well that ends well. After a harrowing rescue mission, the Titan returns to Earth with the Vanguard refugees. It is impossible to tell if the cloud was saved from destruction, but they leave knowing that they did what they could. It's an ending that's uplifting, but also a little soul-crushing. The way they ultimately regard their mission as a success, purely based on things being better than they would have been, is somber, but perhaps appropriate and as a way to end such an existential journey. The way they ultimately regard the mission as a success, purely based on things being better than they would have been, is somber, but perhaps appropriate. Returning to Earth, the Niall begin their new life closer to their human cousins. Thrain, the ambassador we follow the whole novel, grows to trust humanity and fights for the rights of his people and becomes their leader. He is a reluctant leader, putting his hand up because the alternative is the same dogma and racism he's been fighting against. It's a way of tying up one of the novel's messages, that is, being the change you want to see in the world, even when it seems scary and intimidating. Meanwhile, back on the Titan, everything's slowly returning back to normal. Despite not having much to do throughout the book, Merrick, a Reman refugee from taking wing, officially leaves the ship to have his asylum request formally heard. His departure is given the brief spot of fanfare it deserves. His presence was a nice revaluation of the relationship between Starfleet and the Remans, so it's a shame that we never really hear from them again. Tuvok, after his emotional journey through the novel, decides that if he's to remain on the Titan, his wife must join him. 7 years lost in space on the Voyager, and so close to the same thing happening again. The separation became too much to bear. Being the ship is full of family, notably Riker and Troi, the request is granted. Tuvok permanently becomes the ship's tactical officer. Meanwhile, Keru, following the traumatic experience during the rescue operation on Oghen, requests reduced duties. He becomes the Titan's security chief and nothing more. In more important news, Captain Riker has finally chosen the words that belong on the ship's dedication plaque. After talking about it in the background of 2 whole books, expectations are a little high. The chosen words are infinite diversity in infinite combinations, a mantra that gets thrown around a lot in the Star Trek universe, both out and in. So much so that on the surface it seems a little unoriginal and disappointing, but in the context of the series, and the Titan ship, with the most diverse crew in Starfleet history, it ticks all the boxes. After doing their best to mount a rescue operation and solve the ensuing refugee crisis, their respect for life in all its forms, at least on the surface, seems to know no bounds. With those final words by the plaque, the Titan continues its voyages. The next stop, the Gum Nebula, their original assignment from way back when, before they got dragged into all of this. What strange life forms await them in this region of space? The next novel, Orion's Hounds, touches on just that adventure, so tune in when we delve into our next part on the Star Trek Titan series. Remember, if you want to read this book for yourself, a link's down below. So, that was the second book in the Star Trek Titan series. The Red King explored many interesting ideas, including an alternate, warlike development for humanity, which is accomplished nicely without employing the mirror universe. But it also featured an epic story of Riker stumbling upon a rescue mission and fighting a sentient universe. It's a fascinating book with a lot to say and a lot of action to split it up. If you enjoyed this book and you enjoyed our recap of it here on the Trek Central channel, let us know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Of course, if you did enjoy this video, consider hitting the join button to support the development of future Star Trek videos on the Trek Central YouTube channel. If you want to keep up to date on the latest Star Trek news, lore, and more, then make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media or join our community Discord server. For now, I've been Captain Jack, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Live long and prosper, my friends.